So first of all, here's the model as I understand it. And y'all tell me if it's a little bit different. But the Berkshire neighborhood got together and said, look, there's some dilapidated housing that's occurring in our neighborhood that we're just not happy about.
That's right.
And some of it, I understand there was even maybe a drug dealer in one of the houses, maybe not. So the neighborhood decides, look, we're going to raise the money to buy this house, and then we're going to rebuild it. And then when we rebuild it, what we're going to do is we're going to sell it to somebody, and we're going to keep the proceeds. And then we're going to do that, and we're going to do it again. So we take those profits, we're going to buy another house, and we're going to rebuild it, and we're going to do it again. And what we're trying to do is raise the standard of housing in the neighborhood.
Yes.
We're trying to create home ownership for individuals so that they can create some equity in the house themselves. And at the same time, the community association, in order to continue doing this, keeps the profit and just kind of parlays that into another project. So what made y'all get together to do this? I mean, that's kind of a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Just like you said before, we saw the houses in the neighborhood was going down.
Right.
And it didn't look good to the neighborhood.
Sure.
So we want to help improve our neighborhood.
Sure.
We live there, not somebody else. We live there. And we want somebody else to be a part of what we have.
Right. Well, I get that. I understand that. But, a lot of people sit around and talk about it. Just talk about it, complain.
Abandoned homes or dilapidated homes or deteriorated homes bring down the value of your property.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if this house is in a deteriorating condition and it's beside mine, then
it brings my house down.
So we all get together because we generally used to have a monthly meeting.
Right.
So we get together and we say we have to address this issue. And what we did was we found the first property, and we found out it was sitting there abandoned for many years.
At least 10 years.
10 years. So we said, let's start with this one and see how far we could go. And we asked questions, we get around till we find who the owner was.
Mm-hmm.
We reach out to the owner, and the owner agreed to sell it. Now, when they said they're going to sell it, we did not have the money to buy it.
Right.
But we get together with the neighbors, myself, Mr. Hagan, Mr. Wiggins, all the people in the community.
Right.
And they contribute.
Okay.
Because the lady said she wanted, 10,000 or whatever it is.
Okay. Whatever the number was doesn't really matter, but you didn't have it, so you had to get it together.
So we get it.
We had to get it from each other.
Once we get it, we purchase the home, we take care of all the expenses for it, then we decide to renovate it.
Right.
So that's where the renovation comes in. The sale of the property, the money that we receive from it, after paying off all the bills that we accumulate to take care of the property,
right,
we put it into 701?
Yes.
701. That was another rundown property sitting down there. You came by there.
I did. I sure did. I was going to tell that story.
Yes. And we knocked that down, and we're getting ready to rebuild on it.
Rebuild on 701.
So, as I understand too, the story. Now, y'all tell me if I don't have it wrong, but I mean, folks were pulling out of their personal savings. People were, taking, money from their credit cards. They were from home equity lines. I'm talking about everybody in your community. That's how committed each of you were as neighbors in the community, that you were willing to do that out of your own pocket, looking for no real return on this thing, other than your value of your house and the quality of the neighborhood.
Yes.
And what I mean by quality are neighbors that, you can share with. They're neighbors, right? Mm-hmm. By every definition.
Yeah.
And some of these houses were also boarded up. So,
yes.
So walk me through the journey. I mean, you just danced right on through that, but I also know that the city was able to provide a grant of $40,000 to complete that first project.
Yes.
So I think that's the part of the story that nobody really fully understands, right? So people sit at City Hall, watch the meeting. Oh my gosh, how come this neighborhood gets $40,000 to complete this project? Well, I want everybody to understand exactly the sacrifice, the challenges that you individually did and collectively did, and got to that last place where you just couldn't complete the house.
Mm-hmm.
just couldn't complete it. So you're $40,000. You might as well have been $1 million away because that just makes a difference in completion of the house.
Yes.
And so, as I understand, Richard Joyner was a big proponent and help in that and assisting in that process. Sold it to council, but it was a good thing. So you got the $40,000. You're able to complete the house.
Yes.
And I was there for that second day, for that second house. And let me tell you what I saw. I saw a bunch of people that had a joy in their eye. They were smiles. There was this ownership of neighborhood. There was a pride in the neighborhood that was just so infectious. I didn't want to leave. I didn't have long to stay. I only had about 30 minutes allocated. I think I may have stayed 45 minutes because I was enjoying the ambiance of all that.
Okay.
So how many houses do you have left in your neighborhood that you kind of targeted that you feel like that you need to, to try to repair, if you
I think there are
will?
about 2 more
Yes,
that's
it's too.
sitting there, but we can do anything to it until we complete 701
Right.
and get the proceed from 701 to move on, because the city not going to give us all the money we need to do that.
Right.
But once we start it and we can present them with a viable option and some numbers, then when the next grant come around,
Sure.
we'll get it and then we can proceed.
Sure.
But we have to do 701 first.
Right. I got you. So how far along are you in the completion? Now you bought it, you tore it down.
We tore it down, and we've got some bids in
Okay.
to restore it,
Okay.
rebuild it.
And what are the bids looking like right now, if you don't mind sharing, just kind of in total dollars ish? I mean, I know that everything's changing, so
Well, I think we heard of a bid that comes in at like $200,000
okay.
to put one up there.
Sure.
But what we were thinking of, if we accept that bid for $200, we're going to fall short in some areas,
Right.
because the house in that area cannot be sold for
Not for
$200,000.
$200,000.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
But when you complete, but seriously, when you complete your
Right.
project, that is
But-
part of the benefit,
Yeah,
Yes,
we
right?
have
sir.
to start. So I think we have one looking at for like 165,
Okay.
which we figure we will be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Right.
that's the next project we're looking at. So I think we're working on getting that bid
Yeah.
confirmed.
Sure.
to
Sure.
that
Sure.
point, yes.
So how many contractors have looked at this? One or two or
I think we have 2 so far.
okay, got you. So you put out, I guess, an RFP
Yeah.
asking
Mhm.
anybody who wanted to bid. How long does somebody have in order to be able to submit a bid to you? Have you closed that up? Do you have a timeline? What you're saying? We're not going to take bids anymore.
No, because I'm not involved in the bidding process, so I wouldn't know.
Okay,
what
fine,
they-
sure, I understand. But we'll assume there's probably a timeline. But if there are anybody out there listening, I wanted to make sure they, if they could come in at less than 169 to give you the product you wanted, that they at least had the opportunity to do that.
Okay.
So
I don't really think we're on such a timeline where we're gonna say, okay, May 1st you cut off.
right,
If we have one up to May 1st and we still looking around and you come in with
Sure.
the bid for less than what the last one was and you meet our needs,
sure,
then you be considered.
sure.
Right.
So if I wanted to bid on that? How do I do that? Who do I call? Is there a number that we can put up on the screen? We can
Call
do
the secretary.
call the secretary.
Call Miss Joyner.
Call Miss
And she
Joyner.
will take it from there.
Okay, so then she'll say, "This is the plan that I'm looking for. Give us a
Yes.
bid, and this is kind of where we are." And no particular timeline, but when the group gets together and they make a decision,
We'll
we'll
make a
inform you
yes.
and let you know. So now, after you completed each house, how does that work? I mean, do I come in and say, "Hey, I want to buy this house at a market rate"? Or you guys already have a line of people that are kind of in line for such a house? How does that process work?
What happened is we have a real estate guy.
Right.
More real estate.
Sure.
And we tell him what we're looking for. For one thing, we don't want anybody to buy this property and said, I'm just going to invest in it so we can rent it out and make some money.
No, we're
That's
not
not
looking
what the
for
purpose.
rentals.
You want a owner
Owner-
occupied house.
Occupy.
Right.
Got occupied for at least 10 years.
Sure.
Okay. So what we do is The real estate is going to vet you.
Mhm.
And the price you're going to get on the bid is at the reduced price to entice you to buy it and keep it.
Okay.
It's not going to be, let's say the property would be sold for 150.
Sure.
We sell it for 120.
Sure.
And for 120, these are the conditions you have to meet.
I understand. So that's the contract that occurs
Yes.
with the community. And so I guess if I fail to abide by the contract, the community then has the opportunity to take the house back, or
Yes.
at least the additional proceeds. Well, I guess the 30,000 plus
Yes.
whatever penalty there may be. Okay. So that's what you're looking for is you're building a neighborhood,
Yes.
not so much about building houses. There's a distinction on that, and that's a beautiful thing.
So
So
right now, there's about 125 homes in Berkshire.
right,
And of that 125, I think you have more than 30 homes that are rental property.
Okay.
Rent it.
okay,
And we're trying to get rid of
We're trying to
rentals.
get rid of those rental
Understand.
property because the people who rent it, thanks to the city, they Section 8
right,
and they tear the building down. They tear the property up and they walk away from it.
right,
Then they move to another one and tear it up. So we try to make sure that doesn't happen because, like I said, those property bring the value down in the neighborhood.
of course,
And a home is the most expensive item that an individual can buy.
right,
And it's there to appreciate so it can build wealth.
right,
If you're not able to build wealth, ain't no point having it. So our job to make sure that occurs because most of the people living in there now, they over 60.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Most of us over 60.
Right.
Most of them.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Well, anyway.
Most of us, I'm 77.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So most of us over 60.
Sure.
And
I'm soon be 72.
Congratulations.
so they understand what we're trying to do. And what happened in this neighborhood is that a lot of the older people either pass away or move away.
Mhm.
The home is passed on to some relative,
Mm-hmm.
but the relative also move away.
Right.
And they get the house rented and it's being torn down and nobody check it. So we find out who these people are
Right.
and we reach out to them and we make them an offer.
Okay.
I say, this is how we're going to do it. And they will
Right.
work with us.
And I'm assuming you're using your realtor for
Yes.
for that, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
your secretary. They're handling those things,
Yes.
and
Yes, sir.
and so you're getting together as a community. And I guess that's how you set the priorities of which property you're trying to make a run at, or all of them, I guess.
Mhm.
By the way, 30% as a rental market within the neighborhood is pretty doggone good. Rocky Mount as a whole has 62% of all houses are rental. 62%. So you're one of the one of the few neighborhoods with less than 50% of the total housing pool being rental. So outstanding, just so you know. All right. So, and everybody talks about wealth building, right? This has really been touted as a wealth building initiative, and it does create wealth. But I think folks look at this not understanding exactly what we're doing. What you're doing is you're creating equity in somebody's home.
Yes.
Somebody's earning for that. They're paying for that. They're creating that. And by virtue of building the neighborhood in a different way, you're creating appreciation in the sales price and the property value. So that way, collectively, the community wins on that, and the asset's still yours. Are there any conditions? If I buy the house and I pass away, or I have to move away because I'm in bad condition, what happens to the property at that point? Is there any contract with the community that you're able to buy that at some discounted rate? How does that work? Or is that just something we haven't addressed
We
yet?
have not addressed that yet.
Okay, fine.
We have not addressed that yet because, like I said, most of the people living in there been living in there for over 50 years.
Right.
And the homes that are left unattended, those people move away.
Right.
And they move away before we even get there.
Right.
So we are not able to address those problems. But when those problems arise, we probably will find a way to address it.
Sure.
By then, we might have enough money that we can buy it outright from them.
Sure.
And let it lie.
Sure. That becomes an exit for
Yes.
people if they so want it, and then you deal with it. So I think one of the other questions that people have is, so you've accumulated this money. At the end of all of this, you've completed your project. What happens to the money that's accumulated over that period of time?
The money goes in the bank.
Yes.
You pay off the bills that you use to get this property
Of course.
up to par. And then what is left, that is what set aside to move on to the next project.
Sure.
Nobody that's in the organization, the president, the vice president, nobody.
Nobody
There's
collects
nothing
the money.
get anything from it.
Okay.
They're not salary positions.
Sure.
They're voluntary positions. So nobody get any money out of it.
Right.
And that's why it's so well accepted by the community, because they know nobody get paid. We're
Sure.
doing it because we have the energy to do it, we have the time to do it,
Right.
and we're going to get it done, and they're going to benefit from it.
Sure.
So that's how that works.
And I suppose at some point when the projects have weaned it down to a small trickle, perhaps you're using that money for property upkeep or grass cutting
Yes.
or whatever,
Yes.
some sort of service along those lines
Service
for the
along
neighborhood.
the-
Yes, we-
Right, sure. Well, I think that's outstanding. So how would you advise other neighborhoods that want to go down this road? What would you tell them from
Fir-
lessons learned?
First of all, they got to get organized as a community,
Right,
have monthly meetings so they can talk about what's going on in the community.
right,
So if you're not organized and can't talk about it, then you can't do nothing.
right. So would you say that everybody in the community is on board with the project? Or are there any
In our
dissenters?
community?
Yes, sir.
Oh, everybody's on board.
Yeah, I would think you would almost have to have that to really make it work.
Everybody's on board. Because when we started to look at this project, first thing we had to do, we had to become a 501c.
Okay.
And,
Well, that costs a little bit of money too.
well, that came out of our pocket.
Right.
Because I did the paperwork for 501c between Reverend John, Mr. Hagan, Robin. We put up the money that need to go for the articles of incorporation. Then we do the 501s, and we pay for that.
Okay.
So the communities, all the communities need to know that before you can get into this, you have to be a 501c3.
Right.
That way you can get the grant from the city.
I was going to say the city can't give money to an individual
Yes.
that way. They can give it to an organization that's not profit,
Yes.
that's serving the public interest.
Yes.
Even then, it has to be a very specific, narrow focus.
Yes, sir. So that's how that is. So I'll tell all the communities, and if they don't have the withdrawal to do the 501c3, they can come and see us.
Right.
Because I still have documents that I have that I can share with them, so they can just get copy of it and send it up. But you must have that 501c.
Right.
You know.
So you start there with the 501c. You start with agreement of the neighborhood. And
Yes.
do you have some sort of charter? I mean, you guys I know do, but
Yes.
is it written
Bylaws.
We
down?
got our bylaws.
Yes.
We got our
And
bylaws.
y'all negotiated that over a period of time, I assume. Everybody agreed on them.
Yes.
And that's no small task either to get everybody to agree on those types of items.
What we did, we created a bylaw, and we passed it around to all the neighbors.
Right.
Tell them to read it. If they have any objection, any addition or deletion, at the next meeting, bring it to us, and we can go over it and make the changes. And they did that. So
Was there a lot of changes that needed to be
No,
made? I
no.
couldn't imagine. I mean, it sounds like y'all were in
No.
agreement as to
it
what
was
you
just a
wanted to get
simple
done.
bylaws.
Right.
And it just concentrates itself on not so much what John Brown might be doing,
Right.
is how John Brown do it.
Right.
For example, one of the things is abandoned cars.
Right.
It cannot sit here more than such a lot of time.
Right.
We agree with the city. If it's there, we'll notify the city. They come and remove it.
Right.
I'll give you a notice. They come and remove it. Dogs. No dogs supposed to be run loose in the neighborhood.
Right.
Things of that nature. The only thing we try to get now that we have a problem with is speeding motorists.
Okay.
And that's a DOT problem.
Sure.
We got to get them to either put up, because the
Speed
speed limit
bump.
is 35. I don't think the speed limit should be 35 in that neighborhood,
Right.
but that's what they have. So if you're going to keep it at 35, I need some speed bumps
Sure.
in certain places
Or something to reduce
slow
the
them
speed.
down,
Sure.
yes. But apart, because the old ladies, they come to their mailbox. They have to
Right.
come pick up their mail.
Right.
And you speeding down and you get out of control.
Right. No, I understand. It's not safe.
Right?
And you're right. I've been in that neighborhood. I mean, I'm not even sure I can get up to 35 miles an hour in some places.
Oh, they do it.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
But so what you did, in essence, you created a homeowners association without really a formal association. You just came up with a contract. So we agree this is how we're going to operate. This is I'm going to do my part. You do your part. And we're going to enforce this or ask those who can enforce it to do so. And in that way, created some standards. And that's a wonderful thing. So then after you've done that, now I've got to go about the business of trying to figure out how to raise the money, and, one of the things that made it so easy on the Berkshire community is that you guys had raised so much money on your own and embarked on it so far down the road that it became we're just helping, a group that's already there versus somebody saying, okay, I form a not-for-profit, give me my money, which is always a temptation. But it was easier to buy into a project where people had already bought into it and were committed and moving in the same direction toward an avenue of prosperity for everybody, really, and building a community. So then it's about raising the money and then deciding on which house is going to be first.
Okay.
So how would you do that? I mean, some neighborhoods don't have the advantage that Berkshire does. You've got basically one entrance and exit, which allows some control over the neighborhood, different than a lot of places. And I guess you guys could decide based on which house is available. It sounds like you had some houses down, but it wasn't like every other house.
Right.
So how would you advise just folks, those are practical issues that, that you've gone down the road of, but how would you advise somebody?
Take a look at the houses that's in the community
Right.
and see what condition those houses are in. And what if we got a house that needs some more work than another, we need to check and see which one we available, got the resources
Sure.
to take care of.
Right. Sorry, what you can afford.
We don't want to bite off more than we can chew.
You know what? That is wisdom in that statement at levels that I don't think a whole lot of people get. But, if you're $1 short, you might as well be $1 million short, All right. So what other advice would you provide? I think that's outstanding.
Just make sure you have dedicated people at the helm.
Right.
For example, your president, your vice president, your secretary, your treasurer.
Right.
Make sure those people are 100% on board.
Sure.
And because they can make things work. Like Robin, she's the treasurer. They make things work. And you can always go to them. They are accessible to
Right.
everybody.
Right.
And the president is accessible. I'm accessible.
Sure.
So whatever you have, whatever problem you have, or concerns you have, you come to us.
Right.
And we can address it,
Mm-hmm.
right? We might not can address it right there and then, but we'll tell you, we'll look into it, and we'll address it, and we get together, and we come up with a plan for it.
Sure.
And that's how you have to do it in the neighborhoods.
So how much time do you guys spend on this? I know it's a lot more.
Time?
How much time per week? Hours? I mean, if I had to guess, it sounds like a 20-hour-a-week job to me. It may be more, maybe less, but it feels like a lot.
We don't even look at the time.
No,
Right.
we don't
Because
even
I'm
think about
retired.
the time.
Right.
So I don't look at the time.
Right.
I pick up the phone and Reverend Hagans called me and
Yeah.
said, hey, can we do this? Yes. When you want us to do it?
Mm.
Tomorrow.
And I think that's part of the message too. I got to love it so much and having time to commit to it to make it happen.
Yes, sir.
You have to love your neighborhood,
Right.
because if you don't love your neighborhood, it's going to fall.
Right. Right.
Okay? I live at the first house as a turn into Berkshire.
Okay.
And I want when everybody pass my house, it's looking good to them.
Right.
So I want when I pass your house, it got to be looking good.
Right.
I don't want to see the grass growing up. So if the grass is growing and I check it, and you're 95-year-old and you can't do it,
Right.
we get somebody to do it for you.
Sure.
That's
Well,
all.
that's what community does.
Yeah,
So that's being neighborly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for coming and describing what you've done. I tell you what, I think it's a brilliant thing. I am glad that y'all took the initiative. I think this could serve as a model for many, many, many communities in town and other places. Maybe not 100%, but, you know, with the dedication that you guys have exhibited and are demonstrating, clearly it's working. And, you know, my hat's off to you. Thank you for all that you do for Rocky Mountain. And thank you for what you're doing in Berkshire.
And thanks to City of Rocky Mount for helping.
Well,
We could not achieve what we have achieved so far without the help of the City of Rocky Mount with the grants they give.
right.
And we look forward to continue our relationship with the City of Rocky Mount and press forward. We can press forward some more. We're trying to eradicate all the rental properties as much as we can.
Yes.
But to do that, we're going to need some money along the way.
Sure.
So if this house come, because some of the people, like I said, they're not living in Rocky Mount. They're not even living in North Carolina. They're out of town.
Right.
But if we get a hold of them and we say, hey, look, your property is in a bad condition and the tenants are tearing it up, we'll give you $1 for it. And they say, give me $2. I say, okay, we're going to give you $2.
Right.
You say, you have it. So that's one more of the market,
Sure.
the rental market. And that's what we're working on.
Guys, thank y'all so much. I appreciate you being here. I think we're out of time, but it's been an absolute delight, and I look forward to many more conversations as we go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
And, we'll be around as long as we be a mayor.
There you go.
Continue to do this, and we can keep the neighborhood moving forward.
Well, thank you, sir.